Welcome to episode 3 of the Pubshed's guide of how to create your own home bar. Now in this episode we look at security for your home bars. One of our most commonly asked questions is how do you go about securing your home bar? After all, you've put so much time, effort and often costs into creating it, so securing it is naturally going to be right up there in the list of priorities. Now in terms of security devices and systems, there are of course many available, and our job is not going to be to review those in any shape or form, but just to bring a few of them to your attention. It might also be a good idea to consult your household insurance company for advice or recommendations. So perhaps the first thing to consider is how are you going to lock your home bar? If you have windows or doors, clearly it's going to be desirable to make sure that they are intruder proof or at the very least resistant. So for a door, preferably at least 2 locks. Varying types is also useful. If you're using padlocks, just make sure they're weather resistant obviously and durable and large enough for the job as well. If you're using bolts, sliding bolts across, you want to make sure that they're really well mounted and strongly mounted as well. It might be worth considering keeping spare copies of your keys in a separate place to the main set too, in case one goes missing. If your bar has windows, it's definitely worth considering blinds or shutters or even curtains to deter anyone who might want to have a look at what you've got inside. And also window locks, as we mentioned, a lot of them do come with those as standard, but it's well worth looking into that. Now, alarm systems. Many and varied. Some are smart and have links to Alexa, etc., or can push notifications to your mobile device. But I suppose one of the key considerations here is, will you be able to hear it from the house? Is it going to be a reliable alarm system and not prone to being falsely triggered on a regular basis? And is it going to be relatively quick to set and disable from the owner's perspective? You don't want to have to mess around trying to get the alarm system off when it's blaring at you. In terms of locating the sensors, clearly that's going to be very individual depending on circumstances, but considering window and door sensors as well as a PIR sensor of some kind to detect body heat, that's not a bad idea. Another great deterrent is of course security lighting, and there are lots of solar powered PIR sensor LED lights available, reducing the need to wire up or to use another one of those precious sockets inside your bar. You want to keep those free if you can for other uses. And of course, security lighting is just very useful for you going to and from the bar at night. Now, if you're considering a security camera of some kind, perhaps the biggest consideration here is the quality of image. Ultimately, will it be able to capture a suitable image if required? And hopefully it won't be required. But again, there's many systems available here. There's your hardwired systems, which generally have some kind of a monitor, and they can also be linked up to a hard drive recording device to capture motion, etc. Some of them can be looped as well, so they just re-record over the previous recordings. There are wireless systems available too. A lot of those can be linked up to your mobile phone in terms of pushing notifications. There are even IP cameras which can directly upload to the cloud. So that's motion captured, can go up to the cloud. And there's various storage packages available, many of which you do have to pay for, but there is some free amounts of storage often provided with these camera systems. There are even solar IP cameras now, so you don't have to worry about power. Now in terms of those, they have an onboard rechargeable battery, and providing there's good sunlight, that will continue to trickle feed the battery there. But worst case scenario, a lot of them can then be fairly easily removed by yourself and then charged via a USB cable. Now in terms of where you mount those, clearly that's going to be down to an individual basis there, but consider having them somewhere that's obviously not much within reach. You don't want them to be easily removed by a potential intruder, but also not too distant so that it makes it difficult for maintaining and cleaning, etc., which might be necessary over the course of its life. Another system worth considering is a fire alarm system of some kind. And this could simply be a standalone smoke alarm, but again, how are you going to hear it? There are wireless smoke alarms available which can trigger each other, and they are addressable and linkable to each other. So that's one possibility, to have one in the home bar and then another one linked to that in the house. There are of course more expensive fire alarm systems, both wireless and wired, which could be an option depending on budget, and they often require a central control panel and alarm sounder to be fitted in the house, with remote smoke detectors in the bar and potentially elsewhere in your house should you desire it. And of course it's always a good idea to have a suitable fire extinguisher handy, not just in your house but also in the bar. And previous episodes we have discussed making sure that the home bar is electrically safe by consulting and hiring a qualified electrician to install any electric work. But also just really don't overload sockets with too many power-hungry devices, as that's clearly going to be an overheating risk and a fire hazard. And finally, in terms of environmental monitoring, there are many devices out there, from flood alarms to full weather stations with remote monitoring, several of which we've actually reviewed on this channel. Now clearly this might be perhaps a step too far for some people, but actually being able to monitor conditions around your home bar when you're away from home or on holiday is really quite intriguing and quite interesting. Also, you want to make sure things like the humidity levels and temperature levels don't drop too much, and some weather stations are able to be linked to remotely controlled devices such as sockets, etc. in your house and in your bar, so that if certain thresholds are triggered, then appliances can be turned on remotely. Now, in terms of the conditions that can be monitored by a weather station, they vary greatly, from simply just temperature to wind speed, wind direction, barometric air pressure, humidity, temperature. You can even have you can have a lightning detector built into some of them as well as UV and solar. That might be going too far, but clearly there are lots of options out there should you wish to be remotely monitoring the environmental conditions. Flood alarms, again, for some people that might be quite an interesting idea. Some of them can be linked to push notifications again to your devices, and they usually consist of a sensor attached to a main alarm unit, and the sensor can be placed at a level where, if there were to be flood water ingress, that it would trigger the alarm. So, in summary, we hope that has provided a brief overview of some of the security options available for your home bars. We hope that you can join us for the next episode, when we will be looking at drinks. What are some of the home bar essentials, and what drinks dispense options are available? Thank you once again for your questions. Keep them coming at pubsheds@hotmail.com, or alternatively on Twitter you can direct questions to @pubshedsgroup. If you're enjoying this type of content, then please take a moment to subscribe and click the bell icon on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/c/pubsheds. And feel free to join our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/pubsheds. Thank you for listening.